Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is Go Again, a fabulous video cast covering the trading card game Flesh and Blood. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando. Hello everyone, welcome to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. I'm Andrew, with you here as always.
And I'm Josh, the unpaid intern.
The unpaid intern, I love it. The tipped intern, I thought we changed that to the tipped intern. Alright, so we are here today. We are actually doing a tier list-ish, kind of, tier bucketing for all of the legendary cards that we've seen so far. The 4 from Welcome to Wrathe, the hero-specific legendary cards, I should say. 4 from Welcome to Wrathe, and then 5 of them from Arcane Rising. Everyone, thanks for joining us again for our tier bucketing cast here of the legendary equipment. But first, how are you doing today, Josh?
Doing pretty well. How are you, sir?
Doing all right. The baby's kind of crying in the background. Hopefully you all can't hear that too much, but you know, that's life these days. So what Josh and I are going to do today, the inspiration for this is actually, I think it's pretty clear, right? With the product shortage, drought, whatever you want to call it, that we're seeing right now, the legendary equipment, the hero-specific stuff, has really shot up in price dramatically, right? What would you say, Josh? The average price is $250-ish, depending on, across the board.
Yeah, $275 to $250 for sure.
Yeah, so somewhere in that range, and that makes it, I think that makes it hard for a lot of people to get their stuff. So basically the concept here is what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to go through the equipment one by one, talk about it for a bit, but we're going to put it into 3 buckets. The first being absolutely necessary, which means that you have to have that. If you're playing that hero or that class, you have to have that. It's really your key to victory. The second bucket is nice to have, right? And what this means is really it makes life easier, but you could still win a tournament if you didn't have it. And then the last bucket will be can live without it. So, which I think speaks for itself. So let's just go ahead and go right into it. The one we'll do first is Brave Forged Bracers, right? So this is the warrior equipment. To be clear, we do talk about Blitz a lot in here, but this is not just Blitz focused. This is basically, this is constructed everything focused. So do keep that in mind as we're going, that we're not limiting this just to Blitz. But Blitz is still valid. We do love Blitz. All right, so first is Brave Forged Bracers. This is the warrior equipment arms. So once per turn action for 1, your next weapon attack this turn gains +1. Activate it only if you're bladed, or if you've had a weapon that's hit this turn, and then go again. Then it has Battle Worn for 2, which is obviously really good. So what do you think about this one, Josh?
I think this is probably one of the most vital equipments for any class in the game. For both Blitz and Constructed, it's even the 2-block, at minimum, 2-block and Blitz is amazing, but its ability is what churns the getting 2 attacks around and making them hit and trying to get counters on Dawnblade. That I just think it's indispensable.
Really, that's interesting. So I've played a lot of warrior. I find it very hard to get this one off. To have the money left over to use it is the problem, because the basic warrior turn is you, let's say, Warrior's Valor or Spoils or something.
Well, that's a good caveat. I haven't played Warriors, so this is just my impression. So someone who's played the deck, it'd be interested to know your take, because I haven't actually played the class.
Yeah, so I actually have this one as one of the least, which it's ironic. I have this one, but I have this one as one of the least important. I feel that as a warrior, you could go in and win without this. because again, the basic warrior turn is 1 for something that will give your blade go again, then the blade, and then the blade again, right? And you need 3 for that. So,
Yeah.
and then Dorinthea has, well, I should say warrior. Sorry, warrior has no shortage of attack reacts, and that's kind of what this is, except it's not even an attack react, right? Like you have to do it beforehand. So, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think using it to get your blade to make your blade the 4 is super important. But I do think that you can win tournaments without this card.
You put it that way. I see what you're saying about having, that's at least 2 more resources you're having to invest into a turn where you've already attacked. I could see how that would make it hard to get it off.
Yeah, because remember, if your blade doesn't hit, you don't get to go again. And that's not related to this. I mean, with Dorinthea, and to be fair, in Blitz, Kassai does have a better chance probably of using this consistently because her second attack's free, right? But with the Dawnblade, which is where this, I mean, this is an OG equipment, right? With Dawnblade, if it doesn't hit,
Yeah.
you have to throw like there's a lot of times with Dawnblade you can't afford your second attack because you have to throw everything into getting the first one to hit anyway. So a lot of times
I think that's an interesting point. I think it's an interesting point, and that's a precedent I think we might see later with one of the other equipments I have in mind, where maybe it's not ideal for Dorinthea, but better for Kassai, and I think there's another equipment we'll see that I think is exactly the same way.
Yeah. So and I have actually used this more with Kassai than I have, I think, in all of my time playing Dorinthea. So I'm prepared to put this one in the can live without it. It's certainly nice to have.
Yeah, I would have put it in the vital category, but based on your experience, I can certainly see how maybe not so much. Not enough to pay 250 bones for it.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Sure.
I guess that's kind of where my head is, right? It's like if I had to choose to pay $250 for this or something else, it probably wouldn't be this one. All right, next is Grasp of the Arcanite. So this is the Runeblade legendary equipment. Once per turn action for 2, create a rune chant token. This ability costs an additional 1 to activate for each rune chant you control. Go again. Same thing, battle worn, but 2, which is none too shabby. So what do you think about this one?
I think this is, in my opinion, one of the weaker legendaries. Paying 2 to create 1 rune chant is not efficient. And I think in most rune chant builds, I think you're probably going to want to be using the gauntlets to do the extra damage on attacks that cost 2 or more, and that's a generic. It doesn't block, and there's some value in having some block, but I don't think the ability for this is worth it at all, actually.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I think even within Runeblade, I think isn't the curve 1 for 1? Like you can basically poop out rune chants for 1 on average.
Yeah,
So I think this one.
And I just can't think of a scenario where you have 2 extra runes and go again, where you're like, okay, I'll go ahead and take that action to create a rune chant, because it costs an additional resource for every rune chant you already have. So it's only good for if you think there's value in paying 2 resources to get 1 rune chant when you don't have any. And I just don't see when you're going to get value out of that. Because it'd be different if you got more value out of it, or either more rune chants or it costs less, because there are cards that get discounted by rune chant, but it's 1 for 1. And this is a 2 for 1 cost if you don't have any rune chants going. So I don't know. I just don't see the value in this particular legendary.
Yep, I think we're aligned on this one. But hey, I mean, I don't think either one of us has a ton of depth with Runeblade. So there may be Runeblade players out there screaming at the screen right now, and that's completely fair. Let us know in the comments. But I agree.
Yeah, and if there's some interaction, it would be interesting to know what interaction is that people use this for.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
Other than just the blocking.
Yeah, for sure. But I agree. I've seen a lot of people using the gauntlets as well. So I think we're going to put this one in the can live without it, because, I mean, even if there is some crazy combo out there, I think it's pretty solid that you're not going to spend $250 on this, right? So,
yeah.
All right, next is the Mask of Momentum. So this is the ninja equipment. So 3 ninjas out there right now for Blitz anyway. Once per turn effect, when an attack action card you control is 3rd or higher in a row to hit, draw a card. Also has 2 defense, but now it does not have Battle Worn. This one has Blade Break. So you've got a fair amount of ninja experience under your belt, especially recently. How's this one?
I think it very much depends on, like, I could see how you could go without it with Katsu even though you're going wide. It almost feels like a kind of win more. Like, you don't really need that card draw.
Well, it helps your
sometimes it's
arsenal,
hard to
though.
get the
At the
trigger.
minimum, it helps your arsenal, right?
Yeah, so I would say probably 90% of the time, if you have, you'd absolutely use it. And most ninja builds probably would go out of the way to find it if they had the means to. But I've also seen where people use it mainly just not counting on the ability to work, but just for the fact that it blocks for 2.
Yeah, and that's fair. There is one important thing. So I think this one's really good. Earlier on, I would have put this firmly in the absolutely necessary category. However, I think the game's evolved such that I don't know that it is anymore, just because it has to be, Josh, you pointed this out to me, it has to be in a row. So if I disrupt,
Yeah,
right, it's not the 3rd to hit in your turn, it has to be the 3rd in a row to hit. So if I disrupt
and
number
that's
3, you're SOL, right?
yeah. Um, it kind of loses a little bit of value is because if people know that you're trying to rely or trying to really go for that trigger, then they'll sacrifice a card to block a Kadachi, even if they could have afforded to have taken that 1 hit point just to interrupt that chain. Because even if you interrupt the second attack, if people are reading out Kadachi, maybe I don't need to wait to block your 3rd one or deal with your 3rd one. I can block your Kadachi and that restarts your chain. Like, I don't think you're going to get a 5 chain out, so I don't have to worry about the mask the whole rest of the turn.
Yeah, I agree. And then the last thing I'm going to say on this one is it's a head, which is quite relevant for the Skullcap, which we'll talk about later. But
Yeah.
the champions, the heroes that have the head equipment are at an inherent disadvantage, I believe, because of that. So
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Without the skull cap, this is an easy first choice. But I think because the skull cap exists, there might be instances where you might opt for that over the Mask of Momentum, your own class card.
yeah, and the Blade Rake versus the Battle Worn is relevant as well. So I'm certainly I'm at least putting this in nice to have. I don't know if it's absolutely
Oh yeah,
necessary, but this is. If it was Welcome to Wrath, I think I would have put this in absolutely necessary. But I think it
yes,
becomes very hard to play Ninja without it. But
I agree 100%. Welcome to Wrath, absolutely must have, but now it's more of a nice to have.
yeah, okay, cool. So we'll put that in that category. All right, next this is yours. So scab skin leathers once per. So that sorry, it's the brute equipment, or as we like to say here, it's the oh shoot, what do you call it?
The Way in the Light.
Yeah, there you go. So scab skin leathers once per turn action 0, roll a 6-sided die. Gain action points equal to half the number rounded down. This one does have battle worn defense for 2, and it is legs.
All right, so this one, if I'm being honest, is to have. However, I think with Kayo, it's vital. But with Rhinar, it's kind of more of a nice to have because the 2 block, there's not a lot of other options for what you would want to have for legs. Like, you're not going to get use out of the Mage Master's boots or Snapdragon Scalers in a brute deck. But it's not vital, and I think with Rhinar, it can sometimes be risky to use the 6-sided dice to gain actions because it's already a resource issue. Like, how often are you going to be able to afford to have 2 actions when you're having to discard cards to activate your abilities anyways? So I think for Rhinar, definitely a nice to have. I think with KO, especially with the way I built my KO deck, to where I was trying to ensure I had at least 2 attacks every turn, I think it's absolutely vital. But since it's a leg slot and there's not a whole lot of options, I think you would choose to have it if you could. But I don't. I think you could survive without it in a Rhinar deck for sure.
Yeah. So I think we probably put this into a nice to have.
Yeah.
Because I mean but I mean you raise it. I was going to say it's pretty awesome to get a whole bunch of action points, but you're right, you can't really do anything with it necessarily. So that's completely
Right.
fair. Okay, so we'll put that in the nice to have. I mean, I don't think this is garbage at all. And being with the two, like you said, in the lake, I mean, that's what it's going to come down to for me on a lot of these is the slot it takes up, because
Yeah.
that's a very valuable thing, right? Being gloves or being legs is very relevant. Being chest stinks because then you can't take the tunic, right? Or being a
Yeah.
head is a problem. So
And if we were talking about non-legendary equipment, I think the scab skin, bark skin chest slot is not good at all. Absolutely should not be used.
oh yeah, bark bone strapping, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, next, this one, Skull Bone Cross Wrap. Ranger equipment head. Once per turn action, turn a face down card in your arsenal face up. Opt 1, go again. It says Arcane Barrier 1, and it has Blade Break, and it only defends for 1. So I'm a Ranger, I'll take this one first. The Arcane Barrier on this is amazing. It's really, alright, it's not it. It's really useful. It doesn't defend. You don't defend with it, right? Because it breaks it, and it's only 1, so it's rarely worth it. And then you lose your Arcane Barrier, which, granted, isn't relevant for every matchup. And then the key there is turn a face down card in your arsenal face up. A lot of time with your bows, you're putting stuff in there face up. So you have to almost play into this. I mean, the idea here is you're trying to set up Azalea to do her dominate, which is awesome. But I think this one is definitely it's certainly a nice to have, right? But I don't have it, and I've won plenty of games without it. So, I mean, I've lost a bunch of games not having it too, to be fair. But I've won games without it. So, what do you think on this one?
I like this card because it's really the first legendary where I don't feel like you have to sacrifice anything to keep your legendary. Like there's times where I have to swap out because I'm going against a wizard, and so I have to lose a lot of my versatility or a lot of what I like to do with my turn and why I selected my original equipment to begin with in order to accommodate Arcane Barrier. So it's sure it'd be nice if it blocks with 2 for others, but just knowing that you never have to give up your head slot to accommodate Arcane Barrier, I think is pretty awesome. And I think the ability, I think Opt is something that often gets undervalued. To be see a card in your hand, and especially since Azalea has ways to get those cards and bring them into hand the same turn that you opt. But even without it, even if you're just using Opt as a means to know what's coming up in your next hand and whether you want to keep that card or tuck it under, I think that has a huge value. I would say this one is a should have for a Ranger.
Absolutely necessary.
I think so.
I'm okay
I'm
putting
not
it
saying
there.
you can't win without it, but I think that it's such a strong card that if you're going Ranger, I think you should probably find a way to trade, steal, or borrow a way to get this card in your deck.
Yeah, I'm okay putting it there. Like I said, there's at least one game I can think of. It was a mirror match, and I definitely lost because I didn't have it, right? So,
Right.
yeah, I'm okay putting it into absolutely necessary. All right, coming up next is the Storm Striders. This is the wizard equipment, legs, instant for 1, destroy it. You may play your next wizard non-attack as though it were an instant. This has barrier 2. What do you think?
I don't have a lot of experience playing Wizard, but I've played against a Wizard, and I think that if you're going to go Wizard, it's very niche and the triggers are so tight that you have to have this card as one of your second or third ways of turning a non-instant into an instant. And that's just the kind of ride or die way Wizard works. So I think if you're going to go Wizard, you have to have Storm Striders just to give yourself the ability to turn a non-attack into an instant and start chaining some of those abilities that Wizard uses to get attacks out when it's not their turn, which is really when they put the pressure on to not only affect your turn but possibly kill you on your own turn. And this is one of the tools of getting it done. They start with that and the Kano ability, and then I think there's one or two cards that'll get them there if they draw it. But I think they have to have this card.
Yeah, I agree. Again, having very little experience, actually, virtually zero experience with Wizard. Only played against it. I don't see how you don't have this card. It's funny, right? Because you read it and you're like, there's so much bad stuff. Like, I have to destroy my legendary card. Like, that's awful. And it costs one, and like it looks awful on paper, but I don't think that it works without this card.
Yeah, and I think the main feel bad about this card is that it has Arcane Barrier too. Like, you couldn't even give the weakest class the ability to block some physical damage with their legendary, but I guess it's in theme, so to speak. But I think it would, if this had Arcane Barrier 1 and Block 1 like the cross wraps, I think it would be even more attractive. But just the ability itself, I think, is vital.
Yeah. All right, so we're aligned there. Absolutely necessary. All right, next is Tectonic Plating. So this is the Guardian equipment. It is a cool looking gold foil, by the way. Once per turn action, for 1, create a Seismic Surge or a token. Go again, and this has Battle Worn, defends for 2. I think this one's absolutely necessary for how Guardian plays. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to have it. I mean, there's things that you can have in that slot that are okay. But I think it's just so on theme. And I think this is one of the more well-designed legendaries. As far as it's not overpowering, but it works. You're running so many blues, you're very likely to have an extra resource that you can throw at creating a Seismic Surge token, which discounts your next turn, which sets up your even bigger plays or being able to pay for Dominate. And then the Battle Worn, like Guardian in itself, has so much blocking equipment that they start off effectively 26 health in Blitz. Maybe that's not as relevant and constructed in the long run, but in Blitz it's so strong and it's such a good ability. I think if you're playing Guardian, you should absolutely try to get this card.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think this is a really it feels fair too, right? Because you basically sack a turn and then but that's how Guardian works anyway. Is you kind of have a build up and then a swing and a build up and a swing turn.
Right.
And this fits right into it. So, all right, sounds like we're aligned there. Yeah, go get those tectonics, ladies and gentlemen. All right, next is the Teclo Foundry, and I believe this is the last one, right? The Teclo Foundry Heart. Once per turn action for 1. Mechanologist equipment. Chest. Once per turn action for 1, banish the top 2 of your deck and gain 1 for each Mechanologist card banished this way. Activate this ability only if you've boosted this turn. Go again. Battle Worn, defense for 2. What do you think, Josh?
I think this one is a nice to have because of the blocking ability, and in the off chance that using the ability will get you something. I forget the dash card or the Mechanologist card that hits if you boosted 3 times, hits for 10 in the same turn.
Max velocity, right?
Max velocity, yeah. If you could set up a play like that, I think it's awesome. But especially since most of my experience is in Blitz, boosting is very much a risky strategy. So I could see how it may not be appealing to you. I don't know what you replace it with if you don't have it, like what chest equipment's going to work for you if you just go for something with blocks or.
Well, you can run the tunic, right? I mean, tunic gets you money, but it's not going to get you the money at the same amount, but it's also not going to mill you. So,
and I could see depending on your strategy with Dash, that tunic might actually be more appealing in the long run because you can always use a resource to fund another pistol shot or an induction chamber. So I don't think it's vital to have this. I think there's alternatives. I mean, they're expensive alternatives, sure, but I would definitely put that more of a nice to have.
Yeah, and I mean, and you know, even if you're a budget player and you need to replace this, we're not saying you have to go out and replace this with the tunic. There's the what is it, the cross strap, right? That you can break and it decreases by 2.
Yeah, there's the cross, and then there's also the vest of the fist. I think.
Oh, fist will work too.
Is the
Yeah,
one where
vest
once you
fist,
hit,
yeah.
you get 2 resources, and then you can play anything, not just.
So the first fist has to be an action card that hits, though, right? So you can't pistol whip into more money. I don't believe. I'm sure. I will show it. I am showing it right now, but I believe the fist has to be an action card to do it. Which, again, if you're doing the boost thing, you should be able to pull it off.
Yeah, and I think that's how it's kind of the mirror of you want the fist if you're going to be attacking with an attack action first, giving yourself the ability to boost that gives you the go again. Then you break it to get the 2 resources that let you load an injection chamber, shoot. Or if you're leading with the pistol, then, actually that wouldn't work with the straps either. So I think Vest of the Fist might be the one that you want with the boost.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I don't think you are right. So, all right, and then last up, I'll actually throw a bonus at you here. We are gonna go with the Skullcap. So, Arcanite Skullcap, this is the bonus. This is a legendary equipment, but it's generic, and it is in the head slot. So, sorry, Ranger. Arcanite Skullcap, if you have less health than your opponent, Arcanite Skullcap gains +1 and Arcane Barrier 3. It has Battle Worn, which has Battle Worn defense for 1-ish, right? Most times in the game when you're swinging back and forth, it's effectively a 2, right? It's just, is it there when you need it?
Yeah, it's a 2 and then a 1, so it blocks for 3 total, which is huge, especially in Blitz.
Right. As long as you...
And go
ahead.
I was going to say, as a Kayo player and as a new Benji player, I would absolutely love to have one of these, because I'm guaranteed to get versatility out or get the use out of it, since I start with lower hit points. But this card is so strong. I think, with the possible exception of Ranger, possibly in Blitz, you absolutely take this over whatever head slot you have if you can.
Over head slot for sure. I mean, what talismanic lens and stuff like that's what people are playing, right? And then that and the hood, and I don't think there's anything even close to this, right? So.
Yeah. And I could see how maybe its blocking isn't as vital in constructed. So maybe I could see in construction maybe how a Hope Merchant Hood will get you more value because it'll give you at least a chance to draw something when you're in a pickle to get out of it. I've used the Hope Merchant Hood a lot to try to get cards to defend with when I've needed them, in both Benji and Kayo and Rhinar. But if I had this card and can rely on 3 damage blocked every game, then I'm not going to miss the Hope Merchant's Hood at all.
Yeah, fair enough. So, I mean, I think that because this is generic, we obviously have to put it in nice to have, right? I mean, I don't think we can say that this is absolutely necessary, but this is like in between the two. I mean, it's on the high end of nice to have, right?
I think that's fair. I think it's on definitely the upper echelon of nice to have, verging on if you have a way of getting it, then you should certainly try.
All right, so here's the bonus round. So
it's a great.
here's the bonus round I have for you. Well, I mean, this is already a bonus round, but here's the flash round. Mm-hmm. If you have 250, let's say these are all $250, and you have to choose to spend 250 on the Arcanite Skullcap or your class-specific legendary, do you go with the Arcanite? So I'll just go down the list. So Warrior, this or Bracers?
Oh, that's a tough. Have Battle Worn or Blade Break?
It's got Battle Worn.
I think Warrior probably with the Bracers.
Okay, Warrior Bracers. Okay. All right, next up is Grasp of the Arcanite. I mean, considering that we put that one in the junk category, I think that one speaks for itself.
Definitely get there.
Mask of Momentum. You have to choose between that and the Mask.
Because
they're both heads, slot, you do have to choose.
They're the same slot. I think if you're only ever going to play Ninja, then fair enough, get your Mask. But since people tend to dip into other classes, you're going to get more value out of the Skullcap because it's more versatile.
I figured you were going to take the cheap way out and say it depends on which hero you're playing, which actually would have been a valid answer because I think that's probably, like, I think Benji probably goes with the Mask, but I don't know, maybe not because you're, like you said, the defense matters. So, all right, Scab Skin Leathers, Arcanite or your Scab Skin, right? That's actually, you were kind of talking about making that decision earlier.
Oh man, that's a tough choice. Because the Scab Skin blocks for 2 and has Battle Worn, I think that if you're gonna go Brute, you go with Scab Skin. I'd like to have both, but I think if you had to pick one or the other, you go Scab Skin.
Alrighty, Skullbone Cross Wrap, and here you have to choose.
Oh man, I think that the legendary for the Ranger provides so much versatility within its playstyle that I think that even though you're getting less block, you're not sacrificing Arcane barrier against like a Runeblade for one. So I think you go with the Cross Wrap.
Stormstriders.
Gotta have the Stormstriders with the Wizard.
Easy, quick answer. All right, Tectonic Plating. Skullcap versus Tectonic Plating.
Tectonic Plating for the Guardian, sure.
I would think that one's a slam dunk. And then the Teclo Heart.
Ooh, I think that one is probably the closest toss-up. I think that if I were building Dash, I'd probably rather have the Skullcap. But I'm not an experienced Dash player, and maybe there's a very short where you'd want the Teclo Foundry Heart. But that one's kind of like a 55 to 45 kind of toss-up for me, leaning in the Arcanite Skullcap.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that is it. So I'll throw up across the screen while we're getting out of here what our answers are, and hey, let us know out there if you all disagree. I don't know. I think that's pretty much it. So like I said, Josh, I started thinking about this, and you and I have been chatting about it anyway, but I think it's even more relevant now when people are literally having to make dollar for dollar decisions, right? So
yeah, and that's very fair. And then just bringing in the other classes, like I think Katsu really wants the Mask, whereas depending on how you build Benji, maybe you want that 3 extra blocks that you wouldn't normally get that almost brings you back to level with hit points. Even different classes within, or different characters within the same class, you're making different decisions on your equipment.
Right. Yeah. So, and we'll see where they. I mean, yeah, Kassai making the bracers work, right? So, yeah, we'll see where it goes in the next set coming out. What is it, next March? See what else we get. So.
Maybe we get some time to figure it out.
So, all right. Well, I think that's it. Do you have anything else before we get out of here today?
Nope.
Okay, well, thanks guys for joining us. So, just want to remind everyone that we get our sealed product from Gongai Games. You can check them out online at www.gongai.com, and if you do so, you can use code Commando10 at checkout for 10% off your purchase. Dice Commander sees no kickback from that. We just like to support them because they support the hell out of us. And then we get singles from Fab Foundry. They are also local, local for me, not for Josh, but they're in the United States. We are an affiliate of them. If you are going to go purchase singles from Fab Foundry, you can use the link in the description of this video. And if you buy something there, we actually do get a kickback, so you can help support the channel there. Please make sure to check out both Gongai and Fab Foundry as our affiliates. So I think that'll do us for today. As always, guys, if you like what we're doing, please like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what we can do better, what we missed on, and we will see you next time. Go Commando.
Go Commando.